This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Gotta be red.
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 I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the town clerk to call the roll.
Member Sloat,
Here.
Member Martell,
Here.
Member Zeeb,
Here.
Vice Chair Bingham,
Here.
and Chair Hendon.
Here. Okay. I'd like everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The proceedings are now called to order on agenda item number 1, quasi judicial hearing to consider the variance request for 5920 North Ocean Boulevard. Requesting a variance from the provisions of the Land Development Code, Chapter 64, Zoning Article 1, and Single Family Residential District, Section 64-1. Minimum side interior yard setback to permit a 5-foot 9-inch side interior, which is 9 foot 3 inches variance from the required 15-foot setback. The property is located at 5920 North Ocean Boulevard. Property control number 464345270800000453 and legally described as amended plat of Boynton's subdivision north 110 foot of south, 210 foot of muck, LT 445 LYG west of State Road A1A, exact legal description located at Town Hall. Okay. As an aside, we pushed the approval of minutes to the end of the meeting, so I ask everyone to stay. At this time, any ex parte communication should either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, or any correspondence be provided to the town clerk and made a part of the public record. In addition, each member of the board may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she has conducted, or any expert opinions received, and disclose any conflicts of interest on this matter. Sir, we'll just move across.
None.
None?
I visited the property but did not go into the gates.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I did the same. Gates were closed. I did do a Google Earth search, which just gave the overall positioning of the home on the property.
Well, I went in behind the property to look and see what it was they wanted to do, and the land behind it is mostly conservation land.
Yes.
And they have pushed rocks and dirt down into that area.
Okay,
I just simply drove by it and didn't go in the gates.
great. We will then proceed with the hearing on this matter. Will the town clerk please swear in the witnesses?
Everybody wishing to speak on the item, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
When you are called up to speak, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you've been sworn in.
The town staff will now make its presentation on this matter.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner. This is a variance application from the provisions of Section 64-1 for a side yard setback that would essentially allow the existing structure to be squared off, if you will, to allow an extension of an existing encroachment into the side yard setback. There is an incorrect reference on the first page of the staff report to Section 63-117. That should be Section 63-73 for the variance request. So the request would be to allow an extension of an existing side yard setback or an extension of the wall for an existing side yard setback of 5.9 feet, which would be a 9 foot 3-inch variance from the required 15-foot setback. The staff report provides some background on plans that were submitted to the staff and reviewed with the applicant since last year, including a request for pre-application meeting, some additional discussion with the applicant regarding variances, the application for an administrative variance that couldn't be processed because the setback encroaches more than 10 feet into the side setback, and that the application is now for variance to the Board of Adjustment. The staff report also includes analysis of the application relative to the criteria for granting a variance. Does indicate that there are special conditions and circumstances relative to the existing structure that was built prior to the current code requirements. Also indicates that there isn't an existing reasonable use of the structure, so the criteria don't appear to be met based on the staff analysis. Staff recommendation is for consideration of the staff report, the testimony that you'll hear this morning, the information provided by the applicant, and make a decision on that basis. I do know that the applicant has some additional information to supply this morning, and I'm sure has a presentation for you as well. We appreciate your consideration and are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. The applicant will now make its presentation on the matter.
Good morning, members of the Board of Adjustment and staff and members of the community. I'd just like to introduce my wife, Helen, and our engineer who's here with us. First off, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our case for the variance. We do not have any professional attorneys or architects to represent us and present our case. And we apologize if we do not follow any proper protocol in this presentation. We just come here as homeowners to just make our case. When we began this process of what we wanted to do, we truly did not expect that we would be standing here making this pitch. We did not think we would have to go through a variance because our goal was to stick to the existing footprint of the home, which we believed was grandfathered. And after 2 meetings with the town planner and the engineer and zoning official, we were told that at least an administrative variance was required. We did that, and then that request was denied, as the town planner explained, because of the 10 feet setback. We're happy to come here to give and take this opportunity to explain our position in a public forum and show how we meet the requirements for obtaining a variance. But before we do that, I just want to give a brief background of ourselves. We are proud new residents of the town, having moved here in December 2022 from Princeton, New Jersey. We have 2 college-age children, and after they graduated from high school, we looked for a community that would suit our lifestyle and our needs. We looked pretty much all around the U.S., and we decided on Ocean Ridge. Our move was prompted by our desire to provide our children an ability to thrive and grow in this oceanfront community, which we believe embodies America and its diversity, beauty, and small town values. Our oldest son has a severe neurological disability, and this move has done wonders for him. In just the 2 years since we moved into North Ocean Boulevard, my wife has created an oasis of calm and serenity with the outdoor landscaping, using all native Florida plants, and Matthew, our son, is very happy here. Even as we plan our home for tomorrow, the safety and well-being of our children are of paramount importance. And as we come before you today, we come before you not just as homeowners seeking a variance, but as we believe stewards of both our neighborhood's charms and our environment's well-being. At the heart of our request is a simple endeavor to enhance our property and make necessary improvements to an aging home in a neighborhood which is fast developing with multiple new two-story homes. This enhancement is not about expanding beyond the existing bounds of our home, but rather beautifying and making the most of what already exists. We seek to use the existing footprint of the home and build a two-story residence that would match this rapidly expanding neighborhood and increase property values in the town. We want to retain the existing landscape and the front pool area, and we're not making any changes to any of the landscape. We had consulted numerous architects and planners before we started this process, and the general consensus was that you tear down everything and start anew, pull down the landscaping, do new landscaping. But we decided that's not for us because that was not our dream. So the narrative of this request is not solely about preserving the physical groundwork of our property, but also about a conscious decision to minimize environmental impact as we go about making improvements. It stands as a testament to responsible homeownership to seek ways to improve without unnecessary demolition and construction. The idea of tearing down to build anew with the attendant waste and environmental degradation does not align with our values, nor, I believe, the values we share as a community. There is too much of that going on in Florida, and our cherished town is no exception. This endeavor is driven by a vision to enhance not just our property, but to contribute positively to the aesthetic and financial value of our neighborhood at large. It is about creating a space that harmonizes with the existing structures and the natural beauty that surrounds us, adhering to the very ethos of what makes Ocean Ridge so unique. By seeking to utilize the footprint of the existing structure, we aim to honor the past while looking forward to a future where our actions are measured, not just by the personal joy they bring us, by their impact on the community and the world at large. This is not merely a request for a variance, but a pledge to uplift, to beautify, and to respect the delicate balance between development and preservation. And we respectfully request your support in granting this variance. Our presentation today is basically two things. On the one hand, we feel that we may not even need a variance because we are seeking to use what appears on the survey as a paved surface. In looking into it, we had a prior owner who stopped by at our home. I don't know what his name was or who he was. He just came by and said, "Oh, I used to own your home, like several years ago. And I did a lot of improvements here. We did a new bathroom, I did the driveway, and I removed a section of the house so that because I was a single individual and I needed a place to come out of the bedroom and sit down. So we took out what was a space and we have a paved structure. So we believed that that was part of the existing structure. And so when we went into this, we thought we are sticking to that footprint. But the survey kind of shows otherwise, I believe, because it shows a tile surface at the back. And I looked around and I tried removing those tiles, and it did look like there was a solid concrete base all that entire stretch. And also, there is a lot of mold. I did present some photographs as evidence in the record, which shows there's a lot of mold in that area, which looks like it wasn't really planned for an outdoor space. There was no drainage or anything, and there's just a lot of mold. There's no proper drainage. So we thought initially that we did not really need a variance to do this. But having said that, since we're here and we also want to make this presentation that if the board decides that we do need a variance, we are prepared to go ahead and submit our response. So the conditions for a variance, I think the town staff had prepared a memorandum, and I'd like to go through that. And as part of my response to that memorandum, we had provided, number one, that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land involved and which are not applicable to other lands within the zoning district. The staff response was that the existing single-family home was constructed in 1960 prior to the adoption of the current building code, and as such does not conform with the current setback requirements, which resulted in the side setback encroachment. Our response was yes, we agree. The variance is sought not to create a new encroachment, but to align the proposed addition with the existing building line. Number two, that special conditions and circumstances do not result from the action of the applicant. And the staff response was that the special conditions and circumstances are the result of the layout of the house on a lot when it was constructed in 1960 prior to purchase by the current owner and not by the current owner. Again, we agree. The variance is sought not to create a new encroachment, but to align the proposed addition with the existing building line, indicating that the conditions necessitating the variance are peculiar to the land and not as a result of our action. 3. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the zoning ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The staff response was, although other homes which were constructed prior to the current town code and structures encroach on various setbacks similar to the existing structure, granting the variance would allow an expansion of the existing encroachment, which is not allowed by town code. In rebuttal, we submit that granting the variance does not really confer any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the zoning district. We see while driving around and doing a Google map search and also Harper records, the town has allowed encroachment of the side setbacks in our immediate neighborhood in the same zoning district. And we have, as Exhibit 2, provided some we've shown from Harper records, the other homes surrounding us which have a less than 15 feet side back. 6,000 North Ocean, which is one property away from us, has and was constructed sometime in 2008, 2009, has a setback of 5 feet on the south side, which is shown by the little blue thing, measurement tool of Papa. Again, this may not be very accurate. This was just something we got from Papa, and we used the measuring tool which was available on Papa. 5910, the North Ocean, the property immediately to the south of our project, was constructed sometime in 2010, 2011, and has a setback of about 5 feet on the north side adjoining our property. It's almost sitting on our property line. 6,000 Old Ocean Boulevard, the property across the street from 5910, has a setback of 9 feet on the north side, and it's less than the 15 feet. 5929 North Ocean Boulevard, the property immediately to the east of our property, and which was constructed sometimes in the 60s, has a setback of 11 feet on the north side. 6011 North Ocean Boulevard, the property immediately to the east of 6000 North Ocean, was constructed or renovated in 2020 and has a setback of 9 feet on the north side of the property. Item number D. Literal interpretation of the provision of the Land Development Code would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties within the zoning district. Staff response was literal interpretation of the code would require compliance with the side setback requirement, which is a standard that is applicable to all other properties in the same zoning district. As noted in our prior exhibits, and most of the properties in our immediate neighborhood and lie in the same zoning district do not comply with the same setback side requirement as prescribed by the code. They might have obtained a variance or what, we are not too sure, but they don't. These are newer buildings which were constructed after the current code came into existence. So denial of the variance that we have requested would deprive us of rights which are commonly enjoyed by other property owners within the same immediate neighborhood. The item number E, that the variance granted to them is the minimum variance that would provide the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. The staff response was that a reasonable use of the land, building, and structure is currently being achieved without any of the proposed improvements, so the variance is not necessary to ensure a reasonable use. In rebuttal, we submit the variance represents the minimum necessary to enhance our property's usability and enjoyment. The sunroom, as presented in our plan, is a modest improvement that enhances the living space without compromising zoning objectives or neighboring properties. As Exhibit 3, which is an aerial view of the property would show, that's that little corner over there. The location of the sunroom will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, nor would it infringe upon our neighbors' rights or enjoyment of their properties, as the photographs will reflect. In fact, the proposed sunroom cannot even be seen from any public right-of-way, such as to alter the essence of the neighborhood. Directly behind the proposed sunroom is Whitney Way and the preserve, as Vice Chairman Betty had pointed out. There's nothing really behind us. The location of the sunroom as planned will further enhance the view of the rear of the building from Whitney Way, which is the road which just came out, and a new building which is coming up there at 2 Whitney Way. And furthermore, if the variance itself is not granted, the dimension of the sunroom will be 8.5 by 19.4, and it would be like a narrow hallway and would not serve any practical purpose. Not to mention that it will look unsightly from Whitney Way from the rear. It's also worth noting that the front yard of the property is fully developed, and we will be unable to locate the proposed sunroom in any other meaningful location. Item number F, that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and the purposes of the ordinance. The staff response was, if granted, the variance would allow setback for the proposed addition of 5.9 rather than the required 15 feet, and would be contrary to the intended purposes of the Land Development Code. Our response is that the primary objective of setback regulations is to ensure orderly development, maintain open space, and protect the rights of neighboring property owners. The proposed sunroom addition, as we have designed it, would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, nor would it infringe upon any of our neighbors' rights or enjoyments. as subsection C and D will reflect. Denial of the variance would deprive us of rights which are commonly enjoyed by other properties within the immediate neighborhood. Item G, that such variance if granted will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. The staff response was, any extension of the existing structure must comply with the Florida Building Code, and as such would not be injurious to the area or detriment to the public welfare. We agree and we submit that the proposed variance would not be injurious to the area, and we will comply with all Florida building codes and any other conditions imposed by the board. We will ensure that any construction will be safe and in keeping with code requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, any other member of the public who wishes to submit relevant information to the board may come forward and speak for a maximum of 3 minutes each. Please indicate whether you are for or against the project or neither for or against the project.
Terry Brown. I don't think it should be approved. One thing that's missing here in the documentation is buried in the code is a provision that if you exceed 50% of the appraised value of the improvement, that would be the structure, not land, not market value, but the improvement. And their property is listed at $709,000, the structure, not the total value. So to get to 50%, that would be $355,000, right? They've already admitted that they were expending at least $250,000. There's no way in my mind, and this happened in our neighborhood where they were told they could not, if the improvements, and you can't stack them up, do a little bit here and a little bit there. Once you are over that 50% threshold, you got to start over. You got to tear the structure down and start from the beginning. You can't get a variance and this guy's variance was a request for a 1 foot difference, not 9 feet difference. So they're going to exceed $355,000 for the improvements that they list and that they want to do. So if you approve this variance, you're going to be violating that code. It's buried in the development code somewhere. Christy can point it out. That's the code now. So that's my whole position, that they need to start over. If they can live with this property like it is, as it was pointed out over and over again. But if you're going to go over that threshold, we're in big trouble allowing that to occur everywhere else in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Well, any other public comments?
Carolyn Cassidy, 7 Hudson. I just want to tag along with what Terry said. This property is in an X flood zone, not an AE flood zone, and that 50% substantial improvement only applies to AE.
Only applies to what?
AE flood zone,
Oh.
high hazard.
There's a discrepancy in the application of what Terry had proposed. Okay. Staff will now make final comments if necessary.
Could we address his issue?
Next,
Okay.
you're next.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I have no additional comments.
Thank you. The applicant will now make final comments.
As he kindly pointed out, the property value which he talks about is what is probably on paper, but we paid 2.3 million almost for that property. So we don't meet that 50% threshold to begin with.
I think Terry's point was without land value, right? Your point was without land value.
Yes, no, it's the structure.
The structure
The
only.
improvement structure.
So,
And it does apply to single-family residents. Yeah.
And in the A zone, we are not in that.
correct.
Mr. Chair, I think there's two separate issues, and I think the issue that Mr. Brown is bringing up is an issue under the Florida Building Code in terms of substantial completion. I think what Commissioner Cassidy is referring to is substantial improvement under the flood regulations. So there's two different standards. They're both dealing with the 50% rule, and if you exceed the 50% rule, you have to bring the entire property up to standards. Typically, that's an issue that we let the building official address, because at this point in time for this board's consideration, we're just looking at this request for the variance. The building official would have to determine that, and if the building official determined that under the Florida Building Code, there's a substantial improvement and they've breached that 50% threshold, then the building official will have to address it, and if they have, then they may have to come back for a separate variance.
Okay, thank you very much. Do member of the boards have any questions for staff, the applicant, or anyone who has spoken on this item?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for staff, just for clarification. This page has got a bit out of order. So just to be clear, all the references to new homes are irrelevant. They have to deal with prior. Just because the engineer made the comment in one section, nothing to do with the new home here?
No, sir, this is a renovation.
Okay, so then there on page 33, it references additional requirement for drainage plan. Are they also irrelevant?
No, sir. At the time of development plan review, after the variance is considered and the applicant submits for development plan review that goes before the planning and zoning board, drainage would have to be considered.
And driveway as well?
Driveway is in part what's triggering the drainage requirement.
Okay. Well, they should,
That's not specifically relevant to this variance.
I understand. I just think when they do the drainage plan, it's not going to make a difference, but anyway. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Betty, any questions? Before our deliberation.
I was a little confused about the cement that is covered by grass. Are they going to remove is part of what you're going to do is remove the stonework?
There's a tiled surface.
Foundation. It's already a foundation.
So we're not going to remove anything. We're just going to keep that existing foundation, the slab.
And strengthen it.
Are we? So this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's, under that tile, you see a solid slab. So we intend to keep that slab. We might remove the tiles, which are on top of that.
Or we could just pour the concrete.
Was that part of the original?
That's what we understand from a prior owner. I have no way of confirming that.
I have a question first, Mr. Sarah. You mentioned that your improvements will not encroach on the rights or enjoyment of your neighbors.
Right.
Do you have letters substantiating that from your neighbors?
No, we don't.
You don't?
But I don't believe we got any public comments from our neighbors as well. I don't believe so, but no, we have not got anything. And we'd be happy to get something if you want to.
Yes.
Now, one other question for staff. If I'm correct, Google Earth, not Google Maps, but Google Earth has a historical function, so you can actually go back in time. Did you do that to see whether or not there had at one point been a room there that individual took off?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't go back on Google Earth to do that research. I did go back on Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's website, which only goes back to 2007. And I didn't see any vertical structure, just the same sort of paver structures.
I would suggest going forward that you take advantage of that feature.
And Mr. Chairman, not to disagree, but that is a responsibility of the applicant to prove their case that there wasn't an existing structure that they're maintaining.
Thank you. I now declare this quasi judicial hearing closed. We'll now proceed with comments and deliberation by the board. Right to left?
And left to right.
Left to right.
Left or right? Who's left-handed?
Actually, a question for Christine, as far as, are we only deliberating on the setback in that sunroom and not the fact that I'm seeing a third floor on this? Is that something that, because I thought these third floors weren't even, that's something that's allowed at Ocean Ridge?
My understanding, and Corey Gorman can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the only variance before you is to build the sunroom, which creates an additional encroachment.
And Mr. Chairman, just to further clarify, in subsequent revisions to the plan, that third level was removed.
Yes, yeah, that's the way I understood it. Any other? No.
Well, my question is, the reason I asked about the cement, is this sunroom going to be built on the foundation that's under the grass? Or is it a whole new setback requirement? In other words, was the original structure on the cement that's under the grass that is now mildewed?
Mr. Chairman, we don't have any information to answer that question.
The reason I asked that was that originally part of the house, which was outside of the setback area, but nevertheless part of the original structure.
That we don't know. The survey information that was provided by the applicant and the information that we were able to obtain just shows the house in its current configuration. And if you look at the area, you'll see the roof structure doesn't show any additional roof for that area. Only shows what the code would consider pavers, which are allowed within 5 feet of the property line. But there's nothing to indicate so far in the information that we've been provided or researched that indicates that was part of the enclosed living space of the house.
That's what I wanted to know.
I'm concerned about that back area, if there was another structure on it. And I would love to see Google Earth, see what it looked like 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Sure. Personally, I support approving the variance. I mean, it is, as they clearly pointed out, numerous neighbors, their homes are well within the 15 feet, some of them 5 feet. So I think actually they're just in keeping with what's already in the neighborhood. So therefore it's not detrimental in any way, shape or form. And I think that the fact that they're not encroaching, I mean, the other two sides of the building the two sides of the new building do not extend beyond the existing structure. So I don't really see why any reason to deny their request for a variance. It has no impact on their neighbors. You can see the sunroom is behind the neighbor's home. I just, frankly, I mean, if you want to nitpick about little stuff, perhaps, but I think in the general, this is no issue to the community. It's fine. It makes perfect sense. And, unfortunately, perhaps they may not have been aware of the Google Earth concept. I mean, the space is already being used. So what's the difference about putting up walls where a space is already being used? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm a bit conflicted. Because you have to look at, in my mind, what the original intent of ordinances are. Okay, and we certainly don't want 0 lot line homes being built in Ocean Ridge, or at least I don't. So this is the code today, and it's up to us to determine, do we support the code or do we ignore the code? And this is clearly, in my mind, an extension of the non-compliance. On the other hand, and unfortunately, you said this is the minimum variance. This is new construction in my mind, because even though the footprint's there are no vertical walls there. I mean, you may not want to have an 8.5 by 16 or whatever the alternate dimensions are, but it's certainly possible, okay? On the other hand, if the infringement of your neighbor's rights or enjoyment truly isn't impacted, if you truly back up to a conservation area that is prevented to be built on in the future, I think the neighborhood impact is minimized. And at minimum, I'd like to see letters from your neighbors that they have no issue with your addition of that sunroom. As far as our board is concerned, I hate to think that we do set precedent. I think we look at each individual application for variance as a unique circumstance. So, what happens down the road is 9 feet, and what happens down the road the other way is 8 feet. I think they're all unique circumstances, as is yours. So I don't think we are setting precedent. Those are my comments.
I have one more. There are a lot of properties in Ocean Ridge that don't necessarily conform to the rules and regulations today. A whole section was brought into Ocean Ridge. It had smaller lots and more density. And when they were brought in, they were told that they had to build absolutely on the same footprint. Or if they wanted a bigger house, they had to buy 2 lots to build a bigger house. And we tried to hold to that. We have rules and regulations to try and keep Ocean Ridge an open, friendly community. And if you build huge structures with cement walls, you're going to lose the character of Ocean Ridge.
I do have one quick question. The where that sunroom is that going to, and this is just for my own information, is that going to extend to a 2nd story as well?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So I hear what talking about property. I know that there's a guideline that says the footprint can't exceed a certain percentage of the property. Would this addition would not cross that line, or would they violate any of the other rules about size of home per lot? And
I was talking about setbacks as much as.
no, I understand. That's fine.
Yeah,
I think in part you're referring to the administrative variance requirement. But as far as.
No, I'm referring to a new home.
Floor area ratio.
Floor area ratio, it would not exceed that requirement.
Thank you.
I will now entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
I don't know what
Wait, let him make it.
I don't know whether, could I simply say I make a motion to approve the variance as requested?
Correct, and if there's any conditions you want to include in that, you should state them in your motion.
Okay, the only condition, let me ask a question before I add a condition. So this only applies to this house, this property at this time. So if someone wants to come in and knock this down and build a new one, they would not have the 5-foot variance. Is that correct?
That's the condition you could put on it, that it's subject to this structure, and if the structure is ever demolished, the variance is demolished.
Yeah, I'd like to add that condition to it.
Predicated on the fact that it's a single decision.
Right. I just put it, okay. Is that clear what I said?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would you also entertain putting in a second clause to your motion to say, I'd like to see a letter from neighbors that it doesn't encroach on their rights or enjoyment?
My inclination is not, because I assume that the neighbors all received a public notice about this. And it's there, once again, it's on the neighbors to come forward and say they disagree. None did. I don't think why you have to put the onus back on them to go do it again. The neighbors had their opportunity. So I would prefer not to do that at this time.
All right.
So just for clarification, the motion would be to approve the variance subject to it only running with the structure. Now, if they make renovations to the structure, are you fine with that? It's just if they demolish, then the variance goes away,
If the renovations are within the approved footprint,
the current footprint. Okay.
including this addition.
Gotcha.
But are they gonna demolish the base that they build on?
No, if the house gets, if they're demolishing and building a whole new house.
I'm talking about the sunroom that they want to do. Is there not a foundation already there?
They say there is.
Yes.
So then it would have to stay on that same foundation.
Well, per the plans that they submitted, that's what's being approved. They can't go ahead and do something other than the plans permitted.
Any other comments? Bob, you seconded it?
I second it.
We'll now take a final vote on this item. Town clerk will call the roll.
Member Swope,
Approve.
Member Martell,
Approve.
Member Z,
Approve.
Vice Chair Bingham,
Approve.
and Chair Hendon.
Disapprove. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you just going to go over the minutes now?
Yes.
Okay.
So, just not for public comment, I disapprove because you didn't add.
I understand. No, it's fine.
You know
It's
what?
fine.
I think it's only, and they could not, they could be out of town.
Mr. Chair,
But they get,
If the neighbors have
gentlemen,
conformed, that's a negative statement, I would disagree. But the neighbors didn't take.
okay, we're.
Well, my microphone. Okay. I'd like to, I'd like to now go back to approval of the minutes that was originally as item 1. I hope you didn't mind, we changed the order of the meeting so we wouldn't delay everybody else's attendance. We need approval of the minutes of the April 19th, 2022, the February 15th, 2023, and the March 15th, 2023. Did you all have? Where'd he go? He left?
Member Z had to leave.
I second your motion. June.
Thank you.
Any disapprovals? Great. Approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh,
We've got one more item.
Oh.
Approval of the meeting dates.
So the last thing we need to approve are the scheduled meeting dates for 2024. I assume this doesn't mean we are meeting on these dates. These are the dates that are available for variances to be brought forth.
Correct. And then the only other thing that I need you guys to decide on is the June 26th meeting is actually I believe it's a holiday. Or I'm sorry, June 19th is the holiday. And so I tentatively put in a June 26th as a suggestion, or we can do the week before, June 12th. June 19th, we're closed for a holiday.
I think last year did we not have meetings during the summer? Because of travel, it was hard to get quorums, and I think we did away with
We did away with August.
August.
He's right.
And I would recommend we do away with that again. That way, people have plenty of notice if they do need a variance to get it in prior to the July meeting, or delay it to the September meeting, and it doesn't cause undue hardship.
I would leave them on the calendar. I would leave them on the calendar just in case they're needed. We can always say that there are no applicants. But I think it needs to be on the calendar because
Well,
the way for,
if there are no variances, the meetings get canceled.
okay.
What's your feeling?
No, I think, the situation is we don't, not like we're having meetings every time anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind either, unless there's some kind of, important thing that has to happen in August for some resident. I don't see why missing one meeting would be any harm at all.
Can you use your microphones, please?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So I would make a motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2024 and strike the August meeting.
Are you okay with the June meeting as I have it?
Yes.
Yes. I second that.
Can I have a vote?
I move that
Aye.
we accept the,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Can I take a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Adjourn. Thank you.
I definitely would have gone.